Right, fellas.
Yeah, we're... Oi, come on, it's their problem.
Yeah.
Happy Christmas.
We're back at Holby on Saturday week.
I believe in animal attraction. I believe in love at first sight. I believe in this.
What are you doing?
What are you looking for?
Ellen Barkin, Al Pacino, in Sea of Love, in 25 minutes.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer made a very tasty snack.
Over on 2 shortly, Harry Enfield. Then at 10, turkey. Not on the table, at it.
What do you want, a couple of slices?
The news now on BBC1 with Laurie Mayer. The time is 9:20.
President Bush officially pardons the former Defense Secretary Casper Weinberger and 5 others charged in the Iran-Contra scandal. He says Mr. Weinberger, who was accused of lying to Congress, is a true American patriot. And clearing a path to peace in central Bosnia. There are hopes of a Christmas truce between Serbs and Croats. Good evening. On the eve of his departure from office, President Bush has pardoned the former American Defense Secretary, Casper Weinberger, for any crimes he may have committed in connection with the Iran-Contra affair. The scandal, which dogged President Reagan's final years in office, saw proceeds from the sale of arms to Iran being illegally channeled to the Contras in Nicaragua. 5 other officials have also been pardoned. Mr. Bush described Mr. Weinberger, who in January was to face charges of lying to Congress, as a true American patriot. The President-elect, Bill Clinton, has expressed concern at the decision, and the special prosecutor in charge of the Iran-Contra investigations has said that the pardon undermines the principle that no man is above the law.
President Bush's Christmas present for former Defense Secretary Casper Weinberger means the full story of the Iran-Contra affair will never be revealed in court. Mr. Weinberger was due to stand trial on charges of lying, but instead he and others already convicted have been pardoned. In the closing stages of this year's presidential election campaign, evidence released on the Weinberger case appeared to implicate President Bush, possibly costing him votes. Today, Mr. Weinberger, a true American patriot according to the pardon, accused prosecutors of a grotesque use of power and denied Mr. Bush's involvement.
No, certainly not. Because I know that none of the evidence that they had anything whatever to do with the fact. He attended some meetings as I did, and I don't think anything that was there would have hurt him in any way.
But a pardon issued over a holiday when Mr. Bush is in seclusion in Camp David 2 weeks before the Weinberger trial was due to begin will not end the controversy. And the president's contention that Weinberger was the victim of politics drew a sharp rebuke from the prosecutor, whose years of work have been blown apart.
A lie to Congress is not a matter of political opinion. That is a crime. The Iran-Contra cover-up has continued for more than 6 years. It has now been completed with the pardon of Casper Weinberger.
President-elect Clinton, today announcing his choice to lead the Justice Department, knows Democrats are deeply disturbed at the idea that men with powerful friends can appear above the law in a case implicating the president.
I am concerned by any action which sends a signal that if you work for the government, you're above the law.
Not since Richard Nixon was pardoned for his role in the Watergate cover-up has a president so controversially pardoned a man who's not even been convicted of any offense. But as a lame duck president, Mr. Bush may feel he has very little to lose, except perhaps his reputation. Gavin Esler, BBC News, Washington.
American forces have advanced further into Somalia's worst-affected famine areas. A column of 800 troops has moved into the town of Bardira, which has been in the hands of Somali gunmen. Around 25,000 people, many of them starving, are sheltering in the town.
Help came late in the afternoon. A lone armored vehicle, the first sign of the American Marines in their new role as the world's angels of mercy. As these invaders from another century clattered through the medieval streets, the people watched in awe.
I'm feeling very happy. American troops coming in our country. I'm feeling very happy.
The Marines' first objective was the airport. Well aware of the mines that had killed an American official only yesterday, they were careful about where they set up camp, but clear about their aim.
Our young Marines see this mission as certainly one that is needed, and I think for the most part, they're happy to be here to be doing it. This is kind of, talking to some of our young guys as we came in today, this is kind of the Marine Corps' Christmas present to Somalia, and that's the way our young guys look at it as we stand here on Christmas Eve.
The Marines wasted no time in securing the area and quickly disarmed any gunman foolish enough to be caught on the streets. This is why the Americans wanted to come to Bardira, once just another corner of a forgotten continent full of starving children. This morning, as the convoy was on the road, 2 children died in the arms of this aid worker. The shattering statistic is that even in this Red Cross camp, 1 in every 3 of these children will die, helpless victims of 2 years of war and famine. Tom Carver, BBC News, Bardira.
A British soldier serving with the UN Protection Force in the Bosnian capital, Sarajevo, has been slightly injured in a mortar attack. He's the second British soldier to be injured in Bosnia. His family's been informed. Earlier, the commander of the Cheshires, who are protecting aid convoys in central Bosnia, attempted to arrange a truce between local Serbs, Croats and Bosnian Muslims. The ceasefire around Turbe and Travnik would run for about 2 weeks from midnight tonight until the end of the Serbs' Orthodox Christmas celebrations.
The British team wasn't over-optimistic as it set out. There was an attempt last Sunday to negotiate a Christmas truce, and that didn't get far. Now, as we headed towards the front line, the safest assumption was that nothing would come of this effort either. We came to the village of Turbe. It was ominously silent, but the British had asked for a temporary ceasefire while we crossed, and surprisingly no one had yet broken it. Colonel Bob Stewart of the Cheshires searched for any sign of the Serbian officers we'd come to meet. This is the front line between the Serbian forces and the Muslim forces. Normally, it'd be an extremely dangerous place to be, but so far it's been eerily quiet. The ceasefire has lasted for 8 hours, and it seems, at present, to be holding. The roadway was strewn with anti-tank mines, but the Muslim liaison officer with us dealt with them in short order. We headed on in the unaccustomed silence. More mines. Colonel Stewart treated them with a little more respect. Then at last we saw the Serbs. They were wary, but not openly hostile. And their mood improved when they found we'd brought letters from their families on the Muslim side of the line. One of the Serbs recognized a Muslim friend of his who'd come across with us. We went inside for the negotiations. Colonel Stewart had brought a paraffin heater to cope with the cold, and his 2 gigantic sergeant majors guarded the door with an equally large Serb. A Serbian major had turned up, senior enough to show that his side was interested. Colonel Stewart appealed to him.
Is it possible for all sides to cease the shelling and the shooting for the Christmas period until the Serbian Christmas after the 6th of January?
The Major's answer seemed to be encouraging. In principle, the Serbian soldiers on the ground thought it was possible. No one's banking on it, but the peace conference at the Café Dorian went better than anyone expected. Not the usual experience here. John Simpson, BBC News, Bosnia.
The United Nations is still divided on how to stop Serbian aircraft violating the air exclusion zone over Bosnia. The Americans want the authority to bomb Serbian airfields, but the British and French say that direct airstrikes against the Serbs may lead to retaliation against UN troops on the ground.
Good way to end this, I think. Thank you.
Just days ago, Britain and the United States appeared to share a common stance on the enforcement of a no-fly zone over Bosnia. Now it's evident there's distance between them. The problem is in the potentially conflicting roles of United Nations troops, many British in Bosnia. For now, their task is to help deliver aid supplies. But if NATO enforce a no-fly zone, the same British troops will be at risk, seen by the Serbs as allies of those attacking their air operations.
Well, we have three concerns. The first is to ensure the safety of British troops in Bosnia. The second is to do our best to ensure that humanitarian supplies get through. And thirdly, to ensure, if necessary, that the no-fly zone is enforced. And what we're discussing at the moment in New York is the detail of the resolution that will achieve these three objectives.
And the devil, Mr. Hogg agreed, was in that detail. The Americans would patrol a no-fly zone from the Aviano base in Italy and with carrier-based jets in the Adriatic. They want clearance to attack Serbian aircraft on the ground. But the British and French, mindful of their men in Bosnia, are far more cautious. They want the rules of engagement to extend only to Serbian planes and helicopters in the air. The Bosnian Serb leader, Radovan Karadzic, insists, and it isn't disputed, that the Serbs are not flying combat missions. He's demanded that NATO troops in Bosnia, who he calls hostile, should be replaced.
Retailers throughout the country say there's been a last-minute surge in business as customers complete their Christmas shopping. Car sales rose sharply in the first 3 weeks of December. More than 59,000 new cars were sold. That's a rise of nearly 30% on the same period last year.
At Harrods today, Christmas shoppers went on a last-minute spending spree, determined to get in a festive mood. Trading figures at the luxury store are up by 26%, and demand for its exclusive lines has rocketed. The store's response is upbeat.
It's been a wonderful Christmas. We're very pleased to see it. The customers are very happy. It's probably too early to say it's the end of the recession, but it might be the beginning of the end from the retail point of view.
The rush in spending is welcome news to retailers across Britain who've lost vital trading hours following a series of bomb scares in recent weeks. But whatever upturn there's been in trade over the past few weeks, it won't make up for a bleak year.
Some days you're the odd percentage up and other times you're the odd percentage down. And we're seeing this right across the country. But there is no boom, it's just sort of staggering along at last year's level.
Less hard hit are stores in the north of England. At the Metro Centre in Gateshead, the Christmas rush started 3 weeks ago. In 1 week alone, its people counter registered more than 500,000 shoppers. Trade is up on the same time last year, although the centre still expects the recession will claim some victims.
There will be some who didn't get the right stock and who will disappear, no doubt, after Christmas. That'll be the same on most high streets. But I do believe the northeastern high streets, certainly around the Tyneside area, are doing considerably better than their colleagues elsewhere in the country.
And for the motor industry, signs that the recession may be ending. Price cuts and abolition of car tax have led to a 28% increase in sales in December. Rover is now the market leader. At this North London showroom, turnovers doubled. They're selling as many cars this month as they do in the peak period of August.
It's an encouraging sign. I think the expression is cautious optimism, but we've had a few indications over the last few weeks that people are out on the streets and they're a little bit more confident.
For all retailers, the hope is this sudden burst of activity will continue into 1993.
The police have warned drivers to take extra care on the roads following weather forecasts predicting dangerous conditions. A number of accidents in thick fog have already forced the closure of the M62 between junctions 30 and 31 just north of Wakefield in Yorkshire. Arab foreign ministers meeting in Cairo have attacked Israel's expulsion of Palestinians into southern Lebanon, saying they'll take the issue back to the United Nations. They want the Security Council to set a deadline for their return home. The Palestinians have now run out of fresh water, and some are fasting to eke out their food. The deportees are stranded in the no man's land north of Israel's self-declared security zone. Lebanon is still refusing to supply the men with medicine or food, saying they're Israel's responsibility.
The Palestinians have run out of safe drinking water. Now they're reliant on a mountain stream a few hundred yards from the camp. It's fine for washing and cooking, but even when boiled, it's given some of the deportees chronic diarrhea. Publicly, they insist their morale is high, but with some tents already proving unequal to the rigors of the Lebanese winter, the strain is beginning to tell. And with the relief agencies once again unable to deliver any fresh supplies of food today, stocks of potatoes and rice are dwindling. Some men went on a fast to make what little food is left last longer. For the deportees, their plight is another phase in their struggle with Israel. Whether members of Hamas or just supporters, they all want to see the Middle East peace process abandoned.
The way that the Arabs and the Muslims could face the Israel is to prepare themselves in power and then to fight Israel until they liberate the land which is occupied by the Israelis.
These men are committed to the goal of an Islamic Palestine. Theirs is an uncompromising message, which, thanks to the Israeli mass expulsion, is being heard across the Middle East. The camp is fast becoming a symbol for all those Arabs opposed to negotiations with Israel. As a result, the moderate Palestinians and the other Arabs involved in the peace process could yet find this place a severe embarrassment. Stephen Saka, BBC News, Southern Lebanon.
Germany has withdrawn from an international team monitoring Kenya's first multi-party elections for 26 years. It says a list of 30 proposed observers was limited to just 8, which would have meant only about 100 international monitors to cover more than 10,000 polling stations. The elections in 5 days' time are for the National Assembly and the Presidency. From Kenya, Colin Blaine reports.
President Daniel Arap Moi, comfortably in control for 14 years, but now rallying support for his political life. He didn't want these elections. He's an old-style African leader who believes in the one-party state. President Moi gave in to international pressure, which linked foreign aid to reform. This is election campaigning in rural Kenya. The new opposition parties have discovered strong anti-government feelings over corruption, rising prices and tribal favoritism. These villagers support Mwai Kibaki, probably the president's closest challenger. But his campaigners can't match the financial muscle of the ruling party, KANU.
They have this culture of money, where they're distributing money left, right and center. But money is not everything.
Election observers monitoring the campaign are kept busy with complaints, most of them against followers of President Moi.
All along, observers have been biased, many of them. They have been biased. They have been leaning on the oppositions, advising oppositions, and not caring for the entire setup.
The president also denies his supporters stirred up tribal fighting, which has left hundreds dead this year. This is an election campaign which has been marred by violence and repeated opposition claims of government obstruction. There's a great deal at stake, not just for Kenyans who fear worsening tribal violence, but for the whole region, where Kenya has been a stable base for sending international relief to her neighbours in Sudan and Somalia. For all the complaints against him, President Moi and his party still look too strong for the divided opposition. And Moi promises the stability vital for business and tourism. But whatever the election result, the question is whether the losers will accept it. Colin Blaine, BBC News, Meru.
And finally, the world's first twins to be born as a result of a new infertility treatment left hospital today 3 weeks after their birth. The technique, developed in Nottingham, involves injecting a single sperm directly into the egg.
I have to do this bit over here because I can't.
Melanie Brooks collected her twin boys, Sam and Tom, from the hospital today to take them home for Christmas. She and her husband had tried for 7 years to have a baby. 3 years ago, after extensive tests, they were told they would never have children. A technique developed at Nottingham University transformed their prospects. Sperm sometimes can't penetrate through the tough outer membrane of the egg. Using a needle 7 times thinner than a human hair, doctors can select an individual sperm and inject it into the egg just beneath the membrane.
It's quite difficult technically. There needs to be a lot of experience, a lot of expertise, and also the equipment is very expensive and one needs a lot of equipment. But saying that, people can be trained and the technique can be picked up by others, and hopefully it will be in the future.
The technique worked. Some weeks ago, ultrasound scans revealed not 1 but 2 babies. The egg had divided to produce identical twins.
There's nothing I could ever say that would describe how I feel. You know, words just aren't enough. But they're just beautiful.
Now Mrs. Brooks is looking forward to some sleepless nights with the babies she was told she would never have.
The ultimate gift. That's the news this Christmas Eve. From all of us here, a very happy and a peaceful Christmas to you.
Good evening. Police have criticised reckless motorists after a spate of accidents in the past hour on the M62 in West Yorkshire. They happened in thick fog in the Casualty area. Police say motorists are failing to heed repeated warnings after several serious accidents on the region's motorways.
Earlier this week, 3 people died on the M1 near Chesterfield. 13 people were also injured in a multiple accident on Wednesday. Police said motorists were going far too fast for the conditions. Tonight, visibility on the M62 is described as very low. Police say motorists are travelling at speeds of up to 80 miles an hour. They say nobody has been hurt tonight, but the police add that people must slow down to avoid more carnage on the roads.
Police in South Yorkshire say a decision to cancel bus services over Christmas and the New Year could cost lives. But the county's transport executive says it can't afford to subsidise bus services.
Thousands of travellers depend on the Christmas service to see friends and relatives. But the Transport Authority says government spending cuts mean it can't afford the cash needed to keep the buses running. But the decision's dismayed South Yorkshire Police. They've been fighting a battle against drunken driving all week, and senior officers are afraid that with no alternative to using the car, more people will take the risk of drinking and driving.
Well, the concern that we have is that it will encourage more people to drink and drive. We have in the past always encouraged people to use public transport wherever possible, so that we would avoid that very problem.
And it'll be the same here in West Yorkshire. The Transport Authority stopped running Christmas Day buses 2 years ago because they reckoned it was costing them a subsidy of almost £10 a passenger.
And if you were thinking of letting the train take the strain, forget it. There'll be no trains on either Christmas Day or Boxing Day because BR says it's not worth running them.
And that's all from Look North this Christmas Eve. Now the national weather forecast with Ian McCaskill.
Hello, it's already down to -5 Celsius and 60 metres in the Midlands, and what this message really says is please take care on the roads. Now, this is the way the weather pattern looks. This high pressure will keep frost, fog and mist a problem over England and Wales, but meanwhile this weather front will give much different weather over the next few days over Scotland and Northern Ireland, and that front will come southwards as a weakening feature across the country on Boxing Day. Tonight, though, it's a problem with mist and fog. The fog particularly dense and freezing in the Midlands, a few patches elsewhere as well. Very different over Scotland and Northern Ireland, cloudy, spots of rain and drizzle in the northwest, and much milder weather up there too. But in parts of the Midlands, down to, as we've heard, already down to -5 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow, well, again, that fog is a problem, particularly, we think, in the Midlands, tending to thin out during the day, but some patches persisting right through the day. A little bit of sunshine in northwest England, West Wales, and the far southwest of England to start with, but basically a cloudy and rather dull day over England and Wales, and certainly pretty grey everywhere by the end of the day. Some patches of fog persisting all day in parts of the Midlands where temperatures no higher than 0 Celsius. Elsewhere, 4 Celsius. And then on Boxing Day, brighter in the north, cloudy and misty in the south. Good night.
Christmas night on BBC1 with Fools and Horses.
Radio. No, Elton John's just popped in. He's rehearsing in the kitchen.
A bit of the unexpected from Dorian.
I know. You're lost for words. May I suggest you shouldn't have Dorian. They're beautiful. We're not worth it.
Then at 9, guess who?
I'm Sally Campbell. This is Martin Crossway.
How are you?
Chipping in already? No, I love him.
At 9:50, Shirley Valentine.
You're 42, not 22. You're just another stupid woman looking for adventure. And the time for adventures is over. Hello.
Hello. Keep the hankies handy this Christmas night on 1.
For the same price as a day's BBC, you can buy 1/1,000,000th of a Ferrari. The BBC, the best value television and radio there is.
A British network television first now on BBC1 as a list of sinister murders increases. Al Pacino and Ellen Barkin become entwined in a tense and erotic thriller, Love.